the Bears had the #1 overall pick in last year's draft. They traded it because they believe Justin Fields can make that third-year leap. And the quarterback they likely were taking was Bryce Young. So which quarterback will have a better career, Bryce Young or Justin Fields?
I'm going to go Justin Fields. I believe in both quarterbacks. Let me start by saying this. I believe in Bryce Young. I love the situation in Carolina. Joel knows this. I have them winning the division. I'm very high on the Panthers. So I believe in Bryce Young. I'm also very high on Justin Fields. I think that Justin Fields has Lamar Jackson-like ability to dominate a game with his feet and with his arm. I think he has that type of dynamic ability. And I think Justin Fields in college didn't show that running game too much. Like, he didn't show that explosiveness. So the fact that he showed that in the NFL means that, to me, he has untapped potential in his ability. Like Bryce Young, I think his potential is extremely high, but his physical traits are not as good as Justin Fields. Justin Fields is built like a running back. He's built like a big physical running back. You know, he has the speed, the explosiveness. He has the arm strength. He just has to become more accurate, more precise. I'm going to go with Fields. I think he has the higher potential, and I think with the way the Bears are, you know, building their team, I think he can get to that.
You make a good point. Fields is built like a tank at the quarterback position. But I look at Carolina, and I said to myself, Frank Reich's going to be there for a long time. With this Bears offense, they're already one of the elite rushing games. You add in DJ Moore, there's a chance the offensive coordinator, the one who's working on Justin Fields, is gone, and Luke Getsy in a year or two. And if you're seeing now with Buffalo, Josh Allen loses that Brian Dable, it's harder to then win the playoffs if you're not sustaining that OC. So I'm going to go here with Bryce Young. I favor the guy who's a better pocket passer with a little bit more stability. And personally with Fields, I do worry a little bit more with his health. Not because of the size, but rather he doesn't protect himself as well. And Fields can take over games as a rusher, but unlike Lamar, he puts his body in the line a lot more. And I feel like that's what it really comes down to for quarterbacks staying healthy. Sure, if you're getting rocked at 5'9", you're going to feel those hits. But we look at the quarterbacks in recent vintage that have all had their career shortened by injuries. It's an RG3, but then Andrew Luck, guys who are huge sometimes, even a Big Ben, a Josh Allen, not as much, but Cam Newton. And those heads do add up when you think you're Superman. So I'm going to lean here Bryce Young, but if Fields figures out that pocket presence, he can be just as good as Lamar Jackson.
The most valuable time in a quarterback's deal is when they're on rookie contract. Teams have to take advantage of that window. Year 1 by the Bears with Fields was wasted. Year 2 was wasted. Year 3, they got DJ Moore, but they were sitting on a lot of cap space still, and they could have made way more moves, but they didn't make more moves. They signed TJ Edwards, Tremaine Edmonds, which they're good signings.
They could have kept Roquan for all that.
But they're not going to
yeah.
Those signings not going to change around a bad defense. And for me, I just find it hard to believe that Bryce Young, with the coaching staff that he's going to have in Carolina, with the weapons they're going to get better from year 1 to year 2. The offensive line is already great. I think the running game will be efficient. If you can add a weapon or two in the next couple of years for Bryce Young, the Panthers are in a better position to take advantage of Bryce Young's rookie deal where Justin Fields, I mean, after this year is one more year, then you got to pay him, and now the roster becomes really hard to build around Fields. So for me, I think Bryce Young is in a better situation, but I don't like either of these options because teams that have traded for #1 overall picks in the past have not done well. The last time it was done was the Rams for Jared Goff. That didn't end well. Falcons with Michael Vick was a different story because we know he got arrested. But, you know, for me, it's really hard when you're trading up for a quarterback and for you to get back that value. It is. And Bryce Young doesn't have those elite top-end physical traits to the point that I believe in him wholeheartedly.
He's got those intangibles, though.
He does.
He does. I think Fields has intangibles, too.
He does.
Leadership quality and the work ethic is there. Diving into what we're talking about, though, my Chicago Bears. Oh, man, what can you say? I mean, I think we can all agree Fields is fun to watch for sure. He's exciting, fun guy to watch. Shout out to him. Bears fans, I want you to cool down a bit on the pressure. I've seen Fields for MVP. I've seen, you know, the Bears are going to make this to the NFC Championship. I want to cool down on the hype a little bit. You know, I don't want to be one of those guys that think Fields going to come in and throw 50 TDs and have a patch of Mahomes like year 2. I don't want to do that. I think he'll have a good year. I think he can possibly have a great year when you factor in the rushing yards. I think, like you mentioned it, Josh Allen is one of those few guys that we can see take a lot of heavy hits and be okay. And I think Fields has that type of physical body to take heavy hits, but I also think sometimes he can take unwarranted hits that could probably catch you off guard and that can get you hurt. So, and Josh Allen is just one of the rare breeds who has just been lucky as of late. But I think also that situation, if you have a quarterback where he's a running guy and you don't continue to get help, and he has to constantly carry, that can hinder you late. That can hinder you late in your career. But to talk about this Bears team, they had 10 draft picks and 7 of them were on the defensive end. So they went all in, not to mention free agency, they went all in on this defense. They traded for DJ Moore. They traded for Chase Claypool at the deadline, if I'm not mistaken, definitely during the year. Darnell Mooney has always, we always looked at him as a solid number 2, never really a number 1, but he's a really good number 2. Cole Kmet had a solid year as a tight end, so that's good to know. They spent Darnell Wright. They got him as an offensive lineman. They got some guys, Nate Davis. They're going to be good. Everything is about improvement from this team. And you mentioned the coaching staff. Luke, you mentioned Luke, he can be gone in a year or two, but I think if they see improvements from this team, especially this year, insane improvements, and then next year the playoffs, I don't see why he would be gone, especially if Fields really is connected with this guy, especially if Fields is bonded with this guy. And DJ Moore, his contract, they extended him in Carolina, so he's going to be here for some time also. But this team is going to be exciting. It's going to be one of the most explosive teams in the league. It may crack a top 10, top 12 offense in the league. The problem, I think, for this team is the defense. I think this team was in a lot of one-score games. I think Justin Fields, he was pretty much at the bottom of the league in every passing stat. But even with all of that, this team was able to score in bunches. They was able to get some points on the board, whether it be early or late. They was able to do that, and that's something you want to see for a team that won 3 games. So I think this team is going to be good. I have them tying with the Lions in this division, winning 8 games. I think they can make that type of leap. I think offensively, what I'm expecting from Fields, and I just saw the reports, he was having a great joint practice with the Colts. AR was also having a solid practice too. But Fields was having his moments. He had some ups and some downs, but definitely something you want to see from him. If Fields makes that leap that I expect him to leap, along with DJ Moore, you get a number 1 with a young guy. You make that leap, it always looks good. But he has a number 1, a number 2, and a number 3, along with a tight end, a solid running back group with Herbert. So I think that's going to be good. If he can make that leap, this team could definitely win 5 to 6 games. I'm expecting 8 because I think the defense isn't going to be bottom of the league. And I think offensively they can definitely get it going.
Now with the Chicago Bears, they won 3 games last year. Their win total right now, their over-unders at 7.5. I'm going to smash the under on that win total. I think they're winning under 8 games this upcoming season. I think the hype is a little bit too much. They're 26 in roster spending, 7th cheapest offense, 10th cheapest defense. Their big free agent additions were TJ Edwards, Edmonds, and Andrew Billings, who's a pretty good run defender. But really, the secondary is not going to be good. The defensive line last season had a league-low 24.2% pressure rate. They didn't add anybody on that side for me to think that that's going to go up. So if the defense can't get after the quarterback, you're leaving your young corners on an island versus top-end offenses. For me, it doesn't even matter if your DBs take a step in the right direction. If they're in coverage for a long time, they're gonna get scorched either way. And as much as Justin Fields was an elite rusher of the football last year, I think he's the best rushing quarterback in the NFL. The passing numbers and overall the Bears' offense for me, I'm still a bit skeptical on the production that they showed us in a couple weeks. Before I get into the offense, the defense allowed a league-high 463 points. They had a 48.3% success rate and allowed 0.12 EPA per play, worse in the league. So, adding average linebackers is not going to take this defense to being, an average unit. I think it's still going to be one of the worst units in football. But for the offense, Justin Fields last year, 14.7% sack rate, which was 3 times above the league averages at about 3. So Justin Fields still holds on to the ball a lot. The offensive line, although they were top 5 in both pass and rush win rate, it was kind of, I definitely raised an eyebrow on those stats because early in the season, Fields was pressured on about 50% of his dropbacks. The offensive line on film didn't look good. Yeah. So the stats to me, I'm not really taking those and really making my point on those. Justin Fields had the second highest interception rate last year. And from weeks 1 to 6, this is where we saw some improvement. He took 8 third down sacks, 15% of all plays. From week 7 to 10, he took just 1 sack on 60 plays, 1.7%. There was a 3-week stretch, 4 weeks I would say, versus the Patriots, Cowboys, Vikings, and Lions, where the Bears offense exploded.
He was great against the Cowboys.
But the issue with the Bears offense is that they score on 70.6% of opening drives, number 1 rate in the NFL. Their opening drives ranked number 1 in fewest punts, number 3 in points per drive, number 4 in drives to reach the red zone, 4th in EPA. But after the opening drive in those respective rankings, they were 23rd, 26th, 30th, third most turnovers per drive, and 24th in EPA per play, which shows me that the Bears offense gets figured out relatively quickly. What Luke Getsy does gets figured out relatively quickly. And on early down running back runs last year in the first 3 quarters, they were 30th in success rate, 28th in EPA per attempt, 21st in yards per carry, 31st in explosive run rate. So they didn't have an explosive rushing offense from their running backs. And then on early down quarterback passes in the first 3 quarters, Fields ranked 38th in EPA per attempt, 44th in success rate, 20th in yards per attempt, and 43rd in completion rate, and he was 46th in accuracy. So my question when I look at these numbers is, how much is one player going to change this? How much is DJ Moore, who has been in bad quarterback rooms throughout his career and hasn't been able to uplift those offenses into efficient offenses, how much will his impact in the offense change it to the point where it is a high-scoring offense in more than just a 3-week stretch? Because after that 3-4-week stretch when they faced the Cowboys, Vikings, and Lions, the Bears didn't score much points, and even with Justin Fields in the offense, they were getting stopped. So for me, I'm skeptical on the couple of weeks of sample size where they looked amazing, if that's going to translate for an entire 17-game season. That's my biggest question.
There's not a bigger X factor in the NFL than the Chicago Bears. And what it reminds me a little bit of is last year's New York Jets. You don't know about the quarterback. You have a defensive-oriented head coach who had the worst defense in the NFL last season. So there are questions about Robert Saleh. Can he lead an elite defense? The Jets add in Ahmad Sauce Gardner, TJ Reed, and Quentin Williams took that huge lead. He was already a great player. With this Bears team, they didn't do that defensively. They've got a good young secondary, Jaquan Brisker, Kyler Gordon. They added, he struggled last year, but then Jalen Johnson. It's a good group. Eddie Jackson. It's the strength of this team. Mm-hmm. But as you noted, last year they could not stop the run. They didn't generate much pressure. And it feels like it's not the Justin Fields breakthrough that this team needs to actually take that huge step forward. It's the fact the defense has a lot of questions. But like the Jets, who add in Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall, this Bears team has an elite rushing game between Roshan Johnson, Deontay Foreman they added, and then Khalil Herbert, who is one of the most explosive backs in football. Backs. And then you add in DJ Moore in that number 1 wide receiver.
Is that cap?
No. I'm not laughing. I'm laughing at a. Never mind.
Okay. The point is,
You say a word wrong or some shit?
The Jets and Bears are 2 teams where it's not just about the young quarterback taking that huge step forward. And so I look at Justin Fields. In theory, he's basically a baby Lamar Jackson. But as you noted, a 14% sack rate is insane. He had the worst pocket presence in football last year, which was compounded by the inconsistent accuracy. He's got a good arm. He can zip shots down the field. And there are moments where he can fit a ball into a tight window. He can make pretty good throws outside the numbers. And I feel like the rushing ability allows him those opportunities down the field. But it is the touch. It is the consistency of the accuracy. And I'm like, damn, this is the make or break a year for Justin Fields. If he hasn't developed that feel in the pocket, which is often a skill that you're born with, the Bears might be looking at this quarterback situation next year under a totally different light, the way the Jets are and the way they were this last spring. And so I don't know about this team. I just don't think the Bears' hype is reasonable right now. But that being said, they're going to be one of the most fun offenses in the league even still. And I expect them to be a lot better than 3 wins. Because last year they weren't a real 3-win team. They were better than that. Yeah. I think reasonably they're 6-7 wins. but I don't know if it's time yet to put playoff expectations on them.
This is probably one of the biggest boom or bust teams in the NFL for sure. I mean, this team, and even Justin Fields, one of the biggest boom or bust quarterbacks. You know, I think a lot of the problems he had, like holding on the ball for too long, that can attribute to him doing that, but also receivers not getting open. Sure. And I think, as much as people, it's not just him. DJ Moore is not just the one person. DJ Moore shifts Darnell Mooney to a number 2. Who Darnell Mooney now shifts Chase Claypool to a number 3. Like, it's the food chain starts to look more reasonable. You don't want to walk into weeks and equal St. Brown and Chase Claypool, your fucking guys. You're like, shit. All right, well, we're good. Just, so it's like now you have Herbert, Roshan, Deontay Foreman, Justin Fields as a part of a running back. You got to throw him in there as a 4-man tandem in a running back situation that could work. You may have a solid offensive line. So it's like all the little things have to come together. But the defense, like we mentioned, that's going to be the question. Can this defense be situational? Can it get some stops when it needs to? Can it hold up for a quarter or two? Can it make the plays it needs to? Can it have some turnover plays? Can it get to the quarterback? Like certain things like that, can it do? And if it does it for a few times here and there, I mean, we saw last year, if the defense made a couple stops here and there, this could have been from a 3-win team to a 5-win team or a 6-win team if the defense just made some stops, situational work, things like that. So the offense, I think we can all agree, will probably make a modest leap, but the defense is where you need to make that big leap for this team to really be impressive.
There were 1-7 in one-score games. I think that, there's some positive regression that can go into that number. But even if they win, let's say if they go 3-5 or 4-4 or 4-4 in those one-score games, we're talking about a 7-win team around there if they're 500 in one-score games.
They were the literal opposite of the Vikings then.
They were.
That's insane.
And 7 wins is good because if you think about 7 wins, you get 7 wins. There could be maybe 1 or 2 games that you could sneak in. Could be 9 or 7 is you want to get to 7 because you want to just see improvement. You don't want to be another. And even if it's 7 wins, like it could be like the 7 wins, but all the other losses were good losses, like calm losses. You were competitive. That's what you want to see from this team. You want to see some competition. You want to see some edge from both sides. The defense came out on multiple times last year. It admitted they let the team down. They let the offense down. They didn't show up. So you expect to see that drive, that edge from this team coming up this year.
Like we look at the 3-4 week stretch versus the Patriots. Week 7, they scored 33 points. Week 8 against Dallas, they scored 29. Week 9 against Miami, they scored 32. Week 10 against Detroit, they scored 30. Week 11, they scored 24 points. And these are games with Justin Fields, by the way. 24 points. Atlanta's defense is one of the worst in the league, at least last year it was. And week 12 versus the Jets, he didn't play. Trevor Siemian played in that game. But week 13, this is where the production starts to fall off. Yep. These are all games with Justin Fields. Week 13, they scored 19 points against Green Bay. Week 15, they scored 20 points against Philadelphia. Week 16, they scored 13 against Buffalo. And the last game Fields played in, Week 17 against Detroit, who in Week 10, they scored 30 points on. They just managed 10 points on them. So that shows you that the Lions, after facing them a second time, adjusted. And Fields completed 33% of his passes in that game. 7 for 21.
And those games against elite defense in the regular season, Buffalo, Philadelphia, you want to see changes in those games. You want to see a closer game, a game where they're in the fight. You don't want to see 10 points, 19 points. That's disgusting.
So this is a legacy season for DJ Moore. In that 4-week stretch you alluded to, they had to average 240 rushing yards, 240 a game to win and score 30 points.
I don't know if Darnell Mooney missed some time last year, too.
Yeah,
so I don't even know if he.
Second half virtually.
Yeah.
I just really don't think Darnell Mooney's that good.
No, he's all right.
I think he's like a wide receiver 3.
Oh.
Yeah.
I think he's a low end, too.
I think he's a wide receiver 3.
I didn't say it.
I like Darnell. He's cool. He has a nice name.
And Chase Claypool had like 100 yards in like 8-7 games.
One game they fucked him. I forgot which game it was. It was like late and Fields threw it to him. It was like a clear passing interference, and they didn't give him the call. I forgot which game. I think it was against Detroit.
Did he get an Instagram picture?
Yes.
Good. Perfect. At least he got that.
Yeah.
It's just, to me, the Bears and the Packers are the 2 boom or bust teams in the NFC North. Right now, their betting odds, the Packers and the Bears, on multiple sports books, there's times where they're even at plus 400. The Packers are a better value bet than the Bears. both at over under 7.5 wins. The Bears, I mean, compared to roster side by side, the Packers are better across the board. If the Bears actually take this enormous leap, Justin Fields is going to have a Josh Allen type of leap, which the Bills had more offensive personnel than them. They had better across the board. Their defense was elite. They made the playoffs. Like, for me, those Josh Allen leaps are very rare. They are very rare.
Because there's only one Josh Allen.
There's only one Josh Allen, and there haven't been many quarterbacks that have had this high of a sack rate, have been this inaccurate, that turn around. That being said, I love Justin Fields' work ethic, and I think he's capable. But that's why, to me, I'm very skittish on putting my money on him for an MVP or the Bears to win over 8 games or the NFC North. To me, that just seems far-fetched.
I agree. On a positive note,
I'm
here.
here.
Roshan Johnson.
Roshan is good.
I'm here. I'm here for it.
I think it's going to be one of the best running back rooms in the league. Hot take.
Chicago?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, because they have Fields.
Well, obviously, that helps a lot.
He's him alone can be the best running back room in football.
Basically. Last year, they were number 1 in rushing.
And
if
he
they weren't
did that
one
in
there,
like,
too, with the Falcons.
I think he did in like 9 to 10 games. If I'm not mistaken. He didn't play the full doing
when
that.
When I say that,
season.
it's not about the quarterback as much. Like, Roshan was one of the best running backs in football, playing behind the best running back in the nation. And then Khalil Herbert's been waiting for that opportunity for years now to be that kind of future role. And Deontay Foreman, he filled in admirably for Derrick Henry 2 years ago on a team that...
For CMC.
And CMC, too. That's a great point. So all of these running backs bring something a little bit different to the table. They're all young. They've got a lot of juice, and they're going to greatly benefit from probably the best rushing quarterback in the football.
Sounds fun.
Roshan Johnson, to me, I think he's a star. I do think he's.
He's gonna get. He's the second string or third.
I think he's right now. He's third string. I think he'll work his way up though. With his break and tackle ability, with his explosiveness, I think he'll work his way up.
How is his pass blocking? You saw more from the name.
It's good.
If he can pass block, he's on the field on third down, and he's gonna get a lot of reps.